Industrial Sociology at Illinois State University and a member of Illinois People's Action and Vision 2020, which is dedicated to creatively building a resilient community in the face of climate change, natural resource depletion, and economic contraction. Please welcome Bill Rudd.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Let's start with a definition, an incomplete definition on fracking, then we'll move on to a diagram. Fracking is also called slickwater hydrofracking or hydraulic fracturing. They all mean the same thing. And this involves the forcing open of fissures in subterranean rocks by introducing liquid at high pressure, especially to extract oil or gas. Let's move on to a visual here where we can expand this. This is not to scale, but you start by drilling vertically down, typically a mile or more. This can go down 9,000 feet. Then you use directional drilling to slowly turn, and you run your pipe, you run your drill bit horizontally through the shale field. When that goes out for another mile or so, then you perforate that pipe with some miniature explosions. Then you pump down what's called slick water. It's a combination of water and a toxic brew of chemicals to fracture that rock open. After the rock is fractured open, you follow up with a chaser of sand or ceramic, plus some DE chemicals to prop open those rocks. You take the water back out, and then the gas flows. You might have to have the flare off for a while, but that's how you do this process. Let's go into some of the industry propaganda. The first thing here is something that's typically referred to as fracking fluid. A more correct term is slick water. And the slick water involves 90% water, 9.5% sand, and then, as the industry says, only 0.5% of some basic household chemicals like salt, argon that's used in ice cream, stuff you've got in deodorant, it's no problem. Okay, let's move on to the actual truth here. On the water. This is an average frac job, 3 million gallons of water, 750 tons of sand, and we have that 15,000 gallons of fluid. This comes out of the U.S. Congressional Report Service. A better thing is the big Texas wells today that go 8 million gallons of water, 2,000 tons of salt, and 100,000 gallons of chemicals. These wells can be fracked up to 10 times, some of the newer big wells 18 times. There are 2 points here. First of all, it would only take about 70 of these wells to drain Lake Bloomington dry. Gone, no water. A second thing is fracking is based on a mass manufacturing model of spawning cookie cutter wells across the face of the earth that looks like a Pennsylvania pox. And so this is a mass production model. When these guys roll, it's basically drill, baby, drill. And they just go right through these shale fields, putting in pump after pump after pump after pump after pump. Okay, so there are some consequences of this whole process. Let's take a look at the water issue. Where this water is going to come from? It's going to come from your local ponds, your streams, your reservoirs like Lake Bloomington, and they forgot to mention aquifers like the Muhammad Aquifer, as if we needed any more strain on the Muhammad Aquifer than we have already. So the big issue here is, where is the input water going to come from? Ask your politicians that question. Let's move on. This is what a frac job looks like. In this case, rather than having over 200 water tanker trucks coming to the site 24/7 with the lights on this thing on all night, you've got a water pipe coming in here These are your frac tanks. So the water is combined with the frac fluid to produce slip water that goes to this drum of red trucks here. These are pumping trucks that pump down the wells. I can't tell for sure, but this well pad may have 6 wells, and they will go a mile out as spokes like on a bicycle wheel. These over here, this is your silica sand. Some of it may come from just east of Starved Rock, since they're going to strip right up to Starved Rock. And this over here may be your surfactants, which are toxic carcinogens. There are toxic carcinogens in the frac fluid, in the tear gun. Okay. So the Clay County Board, one of the things that happens here is county roads really get beat up badly. Now this is an extreme case, but hey, be prepared for the worst. This is before, this is after. All these big trucks running over these roads are going to beat the living daylights out of them. So staff up, particularly your regulatory board, because these guys are serial violators of regulations. That's just a cost of doing business. And so regulations don't work very well because these guys ignore them. Let's go on to some other things. Here's another little lovely aspect of this process. This is basically a flowback lagoon. To get the gas out, they have to get that water out, or at least a fair portion of it. That water has to be stored somewhere. This toxic stew is stored often in these kinds of ponds. I have a recommendation. Do not live below, downwind, downstream, or nearby one of these fetid, open cesspools. It will not be good for your health. Now, one of the things I've noticed, I've got this H2O plus here. The reason is brought out in the next slide. The H2O plus stands for technically enhanced water. The EPA has a term called norms, normally occurring radioactive materials. It just so happens that the Illinois shale field contains high levels of uranium, as does Marcellus shale. Now that's safely buried underground, but you all know we have problems with radon, and some of you have radon detectors in your basement and radon removal. That's from norms. Fortunately, the uranium is buried 5,000, 8,000 feet underground. You crack that rock open under high pressure, put all this fluid in, bring it back up to the surface. Guess what you've got? You've got hot water. You've got T-norms. Technically enhanced, normally occurring radioactive materials. Here is a sample of wells from a New York Times spreadsheet on about 200 wells in Pennsylvania. And out of 183 of those wells have a gross alpha reading of, that's 324 times above the safe upper limit for drinking water by the EPA. Remember, that's the safe upper limit. Talk to doctors like Helen Caldecott, and she will tell you that ionizing radiation, which is what gross alpha is, has no safe limit. The safe limit is 0. Look at some of the extreme values here, particularly Punxsutawney Phil's Hunting Club. That's 1,200 times above the safe upper limit. We will have hot, radioactive drinking water in Illinois if this industry gets off the ground.